Hello there. The shoulder bridge from the Pilates mat work program is a really good exercise, and it essentially comes in two modified techniques. There's the fixed spine shoulder bridge, where as you push up and down from the mat, your lumbar spine is attempting to stay in a neutral position. And then there's what's referred to as the articulating shoulder bridge, where the spine moves segmentally. One segment is aiming to come off the mat at a time, causing the spine to flex, and then on the return, the opposite happens. You're trying to keep the spine up, but it's staying in that flex position, so it's more for mobility. Each has its own set of advantages and disadvantages, and depends on the individual in question as to what's more appropriate. That exercise is a very good one because it energizes the posterior chain, the gluteal muscles, the hamstrings, the back extensors to lift up. And as you do that, it opens up the front of the hips and it can feel like a really nice stretching feeling. The problems come when you move on to the next levels of the shoulder bridge, which involve one leg coming off the floor. And one of my slight pet peeves with the way shoulder bridges are taught, both to instructors but also to members of the public, is there's not much scope for modification which is covered. And there are some very simple remedies. So I'm just going to talk through that now and aim to address why the next levels of the shoulder bridge are so difficult for so many people. So we start from our rest position and the feet are parallel. And the first thing is that if you're in a classic rest position with your feet a little bit of distance away from the hips and you're coming up into a bridge, when it comes to removing a leg from the floor, the remaining leg is having to do a greater amount of work because of that distance between the points of contact. So if you're new to this next level, you haven't taken the leg off the floor in a shoulder bridge, get your feet as close as you can comfortably to your body, and that will then reduce that burden. As you come up into a shoulder bridge, you have this nice equal base of support. The point of the next level is to challenge the capacity for the body to resist the base of support being removed. So as a leg comes off the floor, you are removing the base of support, you are adding a destabilizing force, and that destabilizing force challenges your core stability. Now, if I wasn't thinking, or if there was no strength at all, when that side comes out, this side will drop as well. And it's your core strength throughout the body which counteracts the removal of the base of support. What a lot of people will find when they perform this is that as they come up with the leg, there's a drop and there's often discomfort as well. So the first point is bring the feet nice and close to your body, as much as your legs will allow. And if you're going to remove base of support, do it slowly. So when you come up to your bridge position, your hands will be on the floor, and you're going to lift the heel up and see whether that is attainable to start with. Then try the other heel, and there's this slight removal of the base of support. And this can be a really nice one to start if you feel that there's difficulty attached to this. If you suddenly bring the leg up, there's a very quick adjustment that's got to happen. So I would tend to suggest this heel and peel technique. The heel comes up, then you slowly peel the rest of the foot off, lift the toe up slightly, and then place it back down. If you feel that there's substantial difficulty in that movement, or you feel your back really bracing or the joint stiffening, this is where the modifications are needed. So the first thing to do is to add more rotational support, courtesy of where your arms are. Again, classically we're always taught to keep the hands next to the body. Just bring them out at a wider angle, and that will give you more rotational support to offset the removal of the challenge to that base of support, removal of that rotational strength. And that wide arm position can be incredibly helpful and give you immediate improvement in the quality and the feeling of your exercise. If at that point you're still feeling there's some bracing happening, or there's just not the ability to keep that pelvis truly level like it's got a spirit level on, bring your feet and knees together to touch, or as close as you can comfortably. So we're really widening this base of support, making this
triangle. So this time, because the legs are closer to our centre of mass, it should feel nice and comfortable to bring that foot off. Again, you can do your heel and peel technique, and just checking as to whether that is achievable before we go into any bigger movements. So if you're happy at that point that you can bring the foot slightly off the floor, you can then progress to what is more commonly looking like the level 2 of this exercise, where you come up into a kind of modified tabletop position. And you can do what some people call a marching bridge, but it's slow, it's intentional, and as you switch the legs over, there's no change in that pelvic orientation. So when you're performing these exercises, some just basic approaching of mechanics and the physical strain and how the ratio of your hand width and your foot width plays such an integral part in the success of the exercise. The wider your feet are apart, the more tipping moment there will be when you remove one leg, and the more strain there will be on your core stability. And if you don't have the core strength to match that, other things are going to take the strain, and that becomes quite counterproductive and can be quite uncomfortable. Also, the width of the arms. The wider the arms, the wider that base of support, the more assistance you give your core. And this is really the driving force of efficient Pilates exercise and core strengthening, is getting to the point where you have that ratio, have these different relationships between the width of the feet and the width of the arms, to the point where you're just able to do the exercise without any discomfort, where your core strength has just helped enough that it's able to facilitate the strength that's needed to keep a neutral pelvic position throughout your bridge. And that's where you get the neuromotor imprinting, that's where you get this repeat message coming in, and that's how you get stronger. If every time you're doing a bridge it's in that classical hip width position, arms by your side, and you've got compromise, you've got joint pain, you've got muscle tightness, you're not achieving anything. It's just going to be a very kind of frustrating process, and you won't improve your bridge at all. So particularly when it comes to the latter levels where there's big leg swings involved, there's no point doing any of that unless you've got these fundamentals correct. Now in closing, what I'd say is, if you are new to this exercise and you start off with your feet and knees touching and the arms very wide, the feet close to your body and just little lifts, gradually, if you practice in this efficient manner, you'll be able to change the ratios a little bit. You'll be able to bring the arms in a little closer. You might take the feet an inch apart, and you can continually assess what kind of relationship you need between the upper and lower body to give the core strength the requisite support it needs to reinforce and come back stronger. And I think this sort of stuff gets missed an awful lot in some of the mat work Pilates programs, and that's why I'd always encourage you to think about these basic mechanical principles and then adjust them into a way which means you can do your exercise safely, efficiently, and critically, with the chance of coming back stronger with repeated proper practice.